All right, welcome. So this is transitioning from first alumni to mentor. So I take it all of you guys are interested in eventually mentoring post your experience here on um, as a student. So how many of you are seniors? Just curious. So we've got
That's still good enough.
3, 4 potential mentors going into the five. That's you five. Okay, sure. So that'll be fun. I don't know if you guys have anything to say before we go.
No?
All right,
Let's just get started.
cool. So, um, nice. All right. You want to hit us next slide or unplug and replug? One of the two.
I'm gonna be manually clicking. I would abandon the clicker.
Oh, it's so sad. That's fine.
No cool point.
We can just roll. All right. So, thank you. All right. So, table of contents, right? The fun part. So we'll go over a little bit of introductions of who we are, and then we'll kind of hit into the overall topic of what does transitioning from a student to a mentor really mean. We'll go into kind of like how you learn and adapt as a mentor, especially as a first year mentor, and then going into kind of balancing your life and robotics, um, which can include going to school, going to the workforce, etc. And then hitting on volunteering and opportunities, kind of talking about what's going on right now that you guys can look at, and then we'll take some time for questions. So let's get into it. So go for it.
Cool. All right, so I'm Aiden Bushane. I am the lead mentor for A744. A little bit about myself. So I go to college, UW Eau Claire, 4 hours away from here for criminal justice. Not engineering, not related. To be a mentor, you don't have to go into engineering, programming, anything like that. You can literally do anything. As you know, some of your mentors currently are not engineers. So I'm a 930 alumni. My rookie year was 2019. I was on the team until 2022. Currently lead mentor of A744. I also mentor FLL. I started on 930. I did FLL when I was a student. I was with Elijah. And then I still mentor to this day. So, yeah.
Then a little bit about me. Hi, my name is Alexis Wangard. I'm also a 930 alumni. I go to Arizona State. Yes, that is very far from here. So it's not 4 hours away. If I drove, it's like 28 hours away. But still, the experience is the same. I'm going to school for finance and computer information systems. So that's really a more strategy side. Like Aiden said, you do not have to be an engineer or do computer science to go back and mentor. Really, they're always looking for people, and as long as you have passion for it, just put your mind to it, and that's completely fine. A little bit about my first involvement. I'm also Team 930 alumni. And then right now for my team in Arizona, I'm the lead strategy mentor for 9432 Team APIT. And then I'm also an FLL, FPC, and FRC judge and lead judge. And I've been doing that since 2022.
I wonder what kind of alumni I am. All right. So my name is Ryder Ben Dixon. I attend UW Stout. I'll be a junior in the fall studying technology education. So teaching engineering, teaching principles of robotics and all that fun stuff. My first involvement, obviously, Team 930 alumni from 2019 to 2023. I was an FOL mentor for some short time on there. I think 3 seasons I did. And then I went to 8744 last year, or last year is my freshman year of college, as a mechanical mentor and drive coach for them. And I also pitched in a little bit this year. And then I also started a new team this year, 10264 Storm Robotics, out of Menominee, Wisconsin, up at UW Stout. And I had mentor and drive coached that team as well. So we will get into transitioning from a student of first to a mentor of first. So stepping into a mentorship role, especially after being a student on a team, comes with a lot of change. You're doing this, or you're not doing the same work that you guys were doing before, and you're kind of taking on a new role. So that shift isn't always like an easy, like right into it kind of change. And there's a lot that I wish that I'd known going into my first year mentoring. And today I kind of want to highlight on those. So first off, we'll kind of take a look at some personal strategies for managing your guys' workloads. Secondly, kind of taking that hands-off approach and shifting that mindset of what that necessarily means. And then we'll take it and kind of bring it all together with hitting on how to integrate yourself smoothly into your team's culture while kind of bringing your own individual flair from where you're from, because that is important. So transitioning from a student at first to a mentor at first. First off, prioritizing your personal life, right? There's a lot going on in your personal life. Obviously, some of you might be going right into college. That's what we did. Some of you might be skipping college, right? You're going right into the workforce, or you're taking a gap year. You don't know really what you're doing yet. That's okay. All of those options are allowed. An important part of like what you're doing is integrating that part of your life prior to integrating robotics back into your life, right? So as you exit, your current teams, it's going to be important for you guys to kind of, you've been used to putting in 12 plus hours a week into something, and now you're going to be taking out those hours before you put them back in. It's basically what I'm trying to say. I kind of wish that I had made a better plan going into my freshman year of, what do I want to do on my new team with 8744. And I think I spent a lot more time doing robotics than I would like to, because I think I inherently messed up my intro to college year. So I didn't really get involved in any new activities at my college. I didn't get involved with any new kind of clubs or just anything that was really going on. I always felt like, well, I'm going to robotics tonight, so can't really be doing that. And I think that now this past semester I made it a priority to kind of take that and add in new activities at Stout, and I had my most fun semester of school, and I still was able to do robotics, and I was still able to enjoy what I do. So I believe that is very important. And then forming and committing a plan, I think, is the best way to kind of attack this. It doesn't have to be like an actual written document that you write down and do, but just having a plan of, okay, how many hours do I want to put in? What is my main goal of mentoring? What do I want to accomplish by mentoring? For me, it was more of, I want to give back, right? Obviously, I'm looking to become a educator, so teaching more students about robotics, getting them more involved was my main priority. So did that require me to be there every single meeting? Not really. And I think that I've kind of adjusted that better now. The next step is kind of that hands-off approach, right? This is the more of the physical, what are you doing as a mentor? And this whole topic is a polarizing thing, and I'm not going to get super into it because I know it's a big heated debate. So your responsibilities that you've had of designing, coding, making social media posts, wiring, fabricating, all of that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all going away, but it does mean that it's changing for sure. All of those things should change from what you did as a student to a mentor. And no matter what role you enter, the reality is you're kind of fitting into your new team's perceptions. So if you're going to mentor a new team, right, assuming that you're moving on to a new team and not your former team, we'll talk about that later. You don't know the new team's culture, or you're going to be finding it out, or you did some research prior to. But a big step of this is communication. Talking with student leads, talking with mentors on the team. This all helps you kind of form that new role, because you're able to avoid going into the, well, I did it this way on my team, and this is the right way, right? Because maybe you had success with a certain topic, right? You did something one way on a team, and it was working well. Doesn't mean that a different perspective wouldn't work as well, or doesn't mean that two ideas together don't create a better third idea, right? So let's talk about your guys' role. So not doing too much versus doing too much, right? You don't want to you don't want to do too much in terms of your new team's perspective. So you don't want to be too hands-on or too hands-off, because that can be disheartening towards a student. Because if a student sees that you're doing something that other mentors usually don't do around their team, that will put that student at a risk of feeling like a diminished morale overall. Yeah, I think that's kind of this slide. Cool. So taking a look at kind of integrating into the team's culture. everyone comes from that different background and knowledge about FIRST, and looking at that, right? The best thing you can do is manage your past experiences to your current kind of flow and state. The language that you use kind of matters, and we talked about that with well, my team did it this way, so we should do it this way. But it should be more of avoiding being a know-it-all, right? I think I had a big issue with that, especially in my first year. I was like, well, I come from a team that, just came off of 2 regional wins, and, everything was great that year. But in reality, like, the new team that I was joining had a lot of really, really good principles that were better than what I was used to. And I didn't necessarily see that right away because I was so just tunnel visioned on, all right, well, I had success in a previous team. I'm going to try to put it there when the success was already there. The groundwork was there. And I had to kind of fit into my role. And it didn't take me until about mid-February till I really felt like I was, playing my role on the team and being a useful mentor. But creating that role, right? Having effective communication with mentors and student leaders. Few helpful kind of starting points is asking how they would handle a specific situation. How would you go about a certain instructional topic, right? If you're working with a student and that student is working on, say, fabricating a part, how would you go about informing that student how to make that part? And I think that's an important piece. Depending on the sub team, right? Asking how much of the work is done by the mentor versus how much is done by the student can be a helpful tip, just to kind of understand what does a mentor do on that team. And then if you don't agree with their answer, then it's kind of take a step back, reassess your situation in terms of why do you not like their answer, and ultimately it's up to you what team you join. If you don't feel that that culture, that team's culture, is what you're looking for, that is okay, right? Good to be respectful about it, but kind of that can help avoid those situations where you're doing too much or too little. So Citrus has a really good workshop about this, so I recommend talking about that. All right.
All right, cool. Okay, so learning and adapting as a new mentor, this I feel like is a really important thing, and I'm probably gonna talk about this, and it's gonna be at 3 bullet points, 3 slides, but it's gonna be kind of all the same thing, and I'll probably circle back to it. So basically, more or less, adaptive leadership is adapting to what your team needs. Ryder talked a little bit about it, but this is a really important thing because you will bring in knowledge from being a student and being an alumni into your new team, and it's important to kind of recognize the needs of that team and kind of make sure that you're helping out in the way you see possible. So, all right. So you can learn from students and you can learn from mentors. Just because you graduate as a student doesn't mean you stopped learning, right? I'm still learning every day. I go to college, right? I'm learning there, but I also learn at Robotics. Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially when it comes to like safety and other things. Like if I'm going to oversee some students, right? For example, like on our first year I was mentoring 2023, I had to oversee electrical. I don't know electrical stuff. I never did. I was a strategy student. I did a strategy for 4 years of high school. I'm still not an electrical expert. I have some stories about that, which I'll tell in a little bit. So I had to oversee that. I asked other mentors, like, hey, what do I do? How do I oversee this and make sure they're doing it safely, right? Robots should be off. Other sorts of things like that about that. And that kind of goes to other stuff. How to use a chop saw, how to use machinery, and all those sorts of things. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Make sure you're safe. It's a really big thing because you're responsible for other students now. Do that. So also learning from mentors. Like I learned a lot from mentors. Some of the kind of how do I mentor, how do I be a good role model for those students. It helps if you have been a lead as a student on a team before, but it's really important to kind of ask other mentors for questions and other things, like learning how certain stuff works, learning how to use a chop saw. I was taught by another mentor how to do that. I have notes and I'm forgetting. Perfect, yeah. And then, so learning from other mentors. So I have some examples. So like, for example, stuff that I did as a new mentor, I put 1032 nuts with 832 bolts because I thought that would work. What is wire gauge? I had no idea. I did strategy. I didn't understand that like there's a difference between 6 and 18. don't lock your keys in the makerspace, which open the makerspace. So yeah, and then also like planning stuff for competition. I don't know. I've never booked a hotel. How am I gonna have to do it for high schoolers? So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff which kind of sounds funny. Some of you guys are mechanically inclined and you guys know what I'm talking about. I had no idea. I was 19 and I'm like, I don't know. I go to college and I like robots. So yeah, that I learned a lot of stuff from mentors, and they, mentors. I look up to other mentors as a mentor. That's okay too. And then students, man, I think I've learned more from the students that are on my team than I did when I was a student from my mentors because of how much I interact with them. So like in 23, 23 or 24, I had to help wire a robot with the team lead, and it was late at night, and he's like, Aiden, I'm like, how do I wire it? And he's like, well, you put the wires together because it's red and black's power. I'm like, Anderson's or Wagos. And he's like, yeah, do black to red and red to black. Okay. So, that didn't work out. We popped a couple breakers, but then we fixed it. So learning stuff like that, it is okay. You'll make mistakes, but do them safely. I learned 3D printers, how to use a 3D printer, and now I have a 3D printer. I learned what is CAN and how that works. I learned a bunch of different stuff. Don't crush box tube. All these mechanical things that I had no idea existed because I didn't do it, and now I have to because I'm overseeing those students. It's okay. You'll keep learning. Basically, you're gonna have to learn. So yeah, cool. And then so you may learn other disciplines. So kind of in the same realm of what I'm talking about. I came in from strategy, and I had to learn some mechanical basics. I oversaw students that were CNCing parts, right? I oversaw students that are doing electrical, programming now. I can't program, but I have to oversee them. You got to find out what your team needs. So in 23, we basically had 3 CAD students. Then in 24, we had 4 CAD students. And at that point, we were having like a lot of the work go on to a few students. So I was like, okay, we need a CAD mentor. We don't have any CAD mentors. So I learned CAD with another student, kind of going back to my point, taught me how to do CAD so I can teach other students CAD. So now over the summer, we have up to 6 CAD students that are CADing the off-season robot. That's finding out what your team needs, right? I learned mechanical programming basics, how to tune a robot, how to do it safely, and those sorts of things. So supervising kids. So like you're gonna oversee other students. You have to make sure they're doing stuff safely. So I learned, stuff about programming as in, hey, let's A-stop a robot when we need to. This is a CNC A-stop. All these sorts of safety things that you should learn because you're overseeing them. You're gonna work with them. It's really important. And then kind of going back to, what Ryder was saying, teams are run differently. I came with a lot of knowledge from 930 coming to this team. They're going to use different stuff. So for example, when I first joined this team on A744, they were using Fusion for CAD, right? And I'm like, well, we should use Onshape. We did it on 930. Well, that's what they know how to use. I'm not going to go and try to retrain a bunch of students on how to use a different CAD software and different programming language or anything like that. Just kind of adapt to what they're doing. And then maybe if you guys make the switch in a few years, which we eventually did, do that. So it's okay. You may have to learn other things. I know some of our mentors, they had to learn Onshape and Fusion for CAD and CAM. So like you might have to learn certain things that your team does so you can help them as they need it. So yeah. And the last point I have is you can do multiple things, and kind of with the last point, but you have to know your limits and understand like where you're at. So for example, like I said, I've learned a bunch of different things in robotics, and a lot of students come to me for help on certain things, or I can redirect them to other students and mentors. But you have to keep in mind, like, I'm only one person. I only can do so much. I can't be everywhere at once. But it does help to know all these things so I can help almost any student, right? I've learned stuff, mechanical, CAD, strategy, business, social media stuff. I can help pretty much any student, but it's great to be well-rounded, be the well-rounded mentor, and it's really helpful. So part of being the well-rounded mentor that I've kind of thought about is you're a mentor now. You're not so focused on the robot, because a lot of the time you'll have students that will, okay, I'm working on CAD and I got to get CAD done. And then, you know what, maybe if robot gets done the week before competition, that's fine because I got to get CAD done. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about the 1 or 2 things. As a mentor, you can take a step back, especially if you know mechanical CAD strategy or a few things, you can take a step back and like, you know what, we need to get robot done early. We need to fabricate parts early. And it kind of helps you plan with the students, which is really beneficial. If I didn't know how all that stuff worked, I'd be, you know what, yeah, we only need a week for programming. That's good. That's not how it goes, as you guys know. But it helps when you've kind of worked with different students and kind of be well-rounded. And then don't overextend yourself. Like, for example, so in 2024, I was sitting a lot with the CAD students, kind of watching them and helping them CAD and telling them, all right, this is what the student said, this is what you guys should CAD, and kind of being that supervisor role. In 25, we got 4 people in strategy, right? They need a little bit more support. You can have 1 student work on strategy all day, but if you have 4 students, they're going to need a mentor with them, helping them with strategy a lot more. So adapting to what your team needs in that given year, because you can't be in too many places. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to quickly talk about your life and robots balance, because unlike these two, I did really balance robots, and you know I'm right. I'm just saying, I balanced joining a lot of clubs and a different robotics approach, and mainly that was because it wasn't because I was only focused on robots. I was because I joined a new team within like my first month of being at school. It was because I was introduced into a new FIRST system. Arizona FIRST is very different than FIRST Wisconsin, and that's not a bad thing. It just basically threw everything that I knew previously, and I needed to hit the ground running with basically nothing. I needed to find what I needed to do to help these kids, but in a different way. Because if I go, yeah, I was on Team 930, they're like, who is that? Who, Wisconsin? Is that in Illinois? No, it's not. So stuff like that. So kind of the experience that all 3 of us got was take time to settle into your new life. Whether you're in college, the workforce, taking a gap year, no matter what you're doing, if you're going to volunteer anything robotics related, you should take some time to figure out what you want, whether that's in schooling, personally, or just with robotics specifically. Take time to think about it, because it comes at you fast the second you start volunteering or saying, oh, I want to mentor a team. When I joined my team, for a little context, we were a rookie team, have about 5 kids, 3 mentors, and I was one of those mentors. When we first started being this team, they said, well, we need a strategy mentor. You can be our lead strategy mentor. And I was all for that. But the second I joined, I realized, oh, they don't know what a pick list is. How do I explain that? So it's just a lot of calls of going over simple strategy things to me, but to them, they have no clue what that is. What is alliance selection? Things like that. So having to balance actually going to school, doing homework, meeting no people, because I knew no one at ASU, and actually teaching this team basically the basics of FIRST and actually establishing a strategy practice. Time management will always be important in your life. You don't even have to do robotics for this to be important. This will be something that you need to learn, whether that be a calendar, a notes app, actually doing something like a Trello for your own personal life. Maybe you do that. I've seen people do that. It really depends on what you want to do, but you need to balance your time effectively to succeed. And then finding a team in next steps, kind of what they talked about before, be dynamic, be what they need you to be, but also be learning for yourself. And it's okay to take a step back and take a break. Just really communicate with your team. What do they expect of you, and what do you want to give back to them? You can go back to the next one. This will be your best friend. I realize I'm going quick. I'm running low on time. First Mentor Network, you just have to go on your FIRST dashboard, firstinspires.com. And if you want to volunteer for an event, you go and click event volunteering, and you go to any of the events that are in Wisconsin or wherever you go to school. And if you want to mentor a team, you go to First Mentor Network, things like that. You can go to the next one.
Skip this, come back to it.
Okay, volunteering and opportunities. Maybe you don't want to mentor. That's completely okay. There's so many volunteer opportunities, and since we're running low on time, if you really want to volunteer or want a key role, come to talk to me afterwards, and I can tell you a lot more about it. You can sign up in the most simple way possible, and being field reset, safety glasses, anything like that, if you just want to stay involved. But if you want to be a key volunteer, so like judging, AV crew, anything like that, you need to find who to talk to, probably someone in First Wisconsin, and start shadowing them. Say, I want to be a judge advisor. Go follow them. Go be a JA in training. If you want to be a ref, find out the requirements for that and follow that. In-demand roles in Wisconsin specifically, AV directing, event managing, and FTC mentoring. So if you want more information about that, come talk to me. And there is also FLL coaching workshops by Roundtable in the future. Yeah. We'll just do the bullet points.
Yeah, we'll speed through this real quick. So, mentoring your former team is obviously an option, or staying in touch with your former team is always a good thing to do. Make sure that you do that. Starting up a rookie FRC or FTC team, FTC is high in demand, I know right now. And obviously, everybody loves FRC. So, starting a new one, if you have any questions about that, I am free to answer them. We'll be hanging around all this weekend. So, if you have any questions for all of us, mentoring First Lego League is always an option as well. So, just make sure you do that. It's always fun. Thank you guys. All right.
Thanks, guys.
We gotta